Hello, I'm Ann Barnhart, and I'm the person who says the things that everyone else is too terrified to say. Western civilization is dying. The constitutional republic that is the United States of America is dying. Orthodox Christianity is dying. Well, check that. These things aren't simply dying as from natural old age. Just a few decades ago, it could have been argued that each of these three things was in their prime. And now, just a few short years later, all three institutions are, it appears, mere weeks from possible death. These institutions, Western civilization, the United States of America, and Orthodox Christianity, are being murdered. Each of these three has been placed upon a satanic altar and stabbed repeatedly, and all three are now bleeding out quickly and profusely. There is precious little time remaining to attend to these wounds. What is the instrument that is being used to murder civilization and the United States and Orthodox Christianity? The instrument of murder is niceness. Yes, that's right, niceness. The last 50 years has seen the satanic Marxist infiltration of every aspect of our lives. And now we are seeing the hyper-aggressive infiltration of Islam, which is a political system very similar to Marxism in its ends. Satan is highly flexible. He uses atheistic systems such as Marxism, and he uses faux religious systems such as Islam. He doesn't care what the means are to our destruction. All that matters to him is that as many men as possible end up separated from God, which is to say, in hell. His number one tactic in the Western Judeo-Christian world over the last half century has been the endless, insistent drilling that the cardinal human virtue, the most important and most noble characteristic any person can possess, and the true message of Jesus Christ in the gospel is that everyone must always, always, always be nice. Not only is niceness not a virtue, I would argue that it is a sort of counter-virtue that stealthily weakens and handicaps the true virtues to the point where they are no longer present at all. At that point, all that remains is an empty, dried husk where a person once was. When Western civilization, the United States, and finally the church is filled with nothing but these empty husks called nice people, collapse and overthrow by the enemy is almost a complete certainty, and we are so close to that right now. Now, some of you are probably very confused as to why I'm railing against being nice. The reason you're confused is because you don't know what the word nice means. You think you do, but you really don't. As I said in my first YouTube clip, words have meaning. And too often today, people use words that they don't know the meaning of. And this is all part of the satanic Marxist plan. This dumbing down of language through the education system and media has allowed for the twisting of language so that now completely contradictory concepts can be presented as linguistic equivalents. For example, the statements, Islam is peace. Well, no, it's not. Or healthcare is a right. No, it isn't. Or tolerance is a virtue. It most certainly is not. And finally, my favorite, you have to be nice. No, I don't. And I won't be nice, and here's why. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, feel free to look it up, the word nice comes from the Middle English, meaning foolish. The Middle English word came from the Anglo-French, meaning silly or simple. The Anglo-French came from the Latin word nescius, N-E-S-C-I-U-S, which means ignorant. And the Latin root of nescius is nescire, N-E-S-C-I-R-E. Nescire is a compound Latin root. The first root is ne, N-E, which means not. The second root is cire, S-C-I-R-E, which means knowledge. This is the same root that gives us the English word science. So, nescire in Latin literally means to know nothing. Run the Latin word nescire through France up into England and let it contract and corrupt for 1,000 years or so, and you end up with the modern English word nice. For many centuries, up until the first half of the 20th century, a nice person was a foolish, ignorant, agreeable, know-nothing simpleton. Because if a person is foolish and has no knowledge, he tends to agree with anything anyone says. Is this starting to sound familiar? Is this starting to click? Enter the satanic Marxist milieu into Western civilization in the early 20th century through both the school systems and the church. Suddenly, it is being taught from the blackboard and preached from the pulpit that niceness is the single most admirable quality that a person and a society can possess. That's right. We've been taught that to be an ignorant fool that agrees with anything anyone says is the cardinal virtue. Let me say this again because this is the point of this entire YouTube video. We have been taught that to be an ignorant fool that agrees with anything anyone says is the cardinal virtue. Is it now not completely obvious to you that we have been totally set up for the fall? This leads us to the terrifying realization that our entire culture, most especially the leadership of our culture through the civic leadership in our government, the intellectual leadership through our academia and media, and the moral leadership through the church, has been completely intellectually and morally hamstrung by this false teaching of niceness. In our culture, niceness has been elevated to the cardinal virtue. As we now know, niceness is really ignorance and foolishness. So what this means is that ignorance and foolishness are now considered moral virtues, and knowledge and reason are considered vices. One need look no further than the inner city to seek confirmation of this. Anyone who utilizes facts, logical arguments, objective evidence, or, God forbid, common sense is cast as an intolerant, bigoted, hateful, and even in a sense, a subhuman person. Now, just to bring us full circle, let's look at the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. People, the Word is Jesus Christ. In the original Greek, the word used for word in the verse is logos, L-O-G-O-S. This is the same word that we use for logic. And in Greek, logos also means reason, as in mental reason. Jesus Christ, the second person of the Holy Trinity, is himself logic and reason, as explicitly stated in the Gospel of John. Therefore, the word nice and the false virtue of niceness, because it demands ignorance, foolishness, and forbids the use of logic and reason, which are ultimately Christ reflected in our individual human intellects, is in direct opposition to the person of Jesus Christ. If something is in direct opposition to Jesus Christ, it is by definition evil and thus satanic. So what is my point in all this? What am I saying here? What I'm saying is that we all need to stop being nice. We need to stop being bullied into being nice. We need to stop agreeing with every lie and agreeing with every objective falsehood that we hear for the sake of being nice. No more going along to get along, because the place that we are going along to is hell itself. Not only that, but we need to start loving God with all our hearts, all our bodies, with all our souls, and all our minds. And when someone says something that is false, we all need to fearlessly, boldly, and in complete charity stand up and correct them. Stand up and say, no, that is not true. We need to start calling evil by its name when we see it. Islam is evil. Abortion is evil. Socialism is evil. If we continue to persist in this nice garbage, our civilization will be exterminated by evil, and it will happen very, very quickly. My only advice is, if things get really bad, seek out the most not nice Christian you can find, because that is the person who will lay down his or her life fighting to defend you from the evil that we opened the door to in the first place while we were busy denying Christ and instead worshiping at the satanic altar of niceness. My name is Ann Barnhart, and by the grace of God, I am not a nice person. God bless you.